afternoon. Welcome to rule of acquisition number 30. This is the complexity trap. 30. Do not become enchanted by complexity or grandeur. 30A. Beware of pyramid builders. 30B. If a theory seems stranger than fiction, it probably is. And 30C. In order to promulgate a scientific fraud, to promulgate a scientific fraud requires ever stranger theoretical constructs. This rule of acquisition was combined with the Ponzi tell from the older version of the rules of acquisition. The complexity trap. People have a tendency to believe things that are overly complex or that are impressive in scale, grandeur. They are convinced that the mind that contrives such a thing is smarter than they, and that it would be socially disadvantageous to question what they are told, even if it sounds a bit outrageous. And this is related to rule of acquisition 27, which is a smarter monkey fallacy. So the rule of acquisition 30 is do not become enchanted by complexity or grandeur. The pyramid builders. There are scam artists out there who use complexity trap to manipulate others. And we're going to talk about some in a moment. And there are others among us who cloak their deficiencies in unnecessary complexity and or grand scales. I call all these people, both of these, I call these pyramid builders, or PBs for short. The sad truth is that pyramid builders are able to gain power and prestige over others. However, from an engineering standpoint, pyramid builders are utter failures. The ancient Egyptians, the kings, had the people build pyramids as a testament to how awesome they are. Grandeur and scale and complexity of construction given the limited tools we believe they had back then. Purpose was to carry a person into the afterlife. They failed miserably. The one that came closest to bringing a pharaoh to immortality would be Tutankhamun's simple little hole in the ground that survived all the grave robbers, and he's the one people remember the most of all the pharaohs because he, made it to national television. And so people know of him more than they know of Ramses or any of the more famous pharaohs of antiquity. And then you have trained equation monkeys. They're all over the place, where they're able to spout equations that they learn, but when you ask them a deep question about it, they have no working knowledge of what they're talking about. Or you get these quote-unquote prodigies. I've seen them since I was a kid. These kids that they put on TV, like on the Johnny Carson show or the David Letterman show, they're able to spout quantum mechanical equations and they're being touted as going to be the next Einstein, but then you never hear anything more of them. So, it's easy to get somebody up there to spout quantum mechanics, and because people have no clue what they're talking about, people go, ooh, ah, and think there's a genius here. I don't know. Has anybody know of any of them that's ever done anything other than get a little bit of Royal Tenenbaum treatment on the TV? This is a picture of a schematic. This is a valid schematic. I have this here to remind me of a story. I went to consult for a company, and the company's engineer was a prodigy, quote-unquote prodigy, that never went to college, and he was able to use schematic design tools, and he was able to put together all kinds of massive diagrams. They just went on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of circuits and all things all connected together in all weird ways. And he was touted by the president of the company as being a prodigy that hooks up stuff in ways that normal engineers wouldn't do. But they were trying to sell something to a big company, and the big company had no understanding what this guy was doing, but said, if you can explain the physics to us, we'll buy it from you. So they called me in to explain the physics, and I looked at their schematic and said, this is all gibberish. And I don't want to go down the story of exactly what happened. That's a story for another day, but it basically showed them that what they had was absolutely nothing. And that they were being tricked by the electricity, a trick of electricity, and their circuit really wasn't doing anything. TV physicists talk about quantum mechanics, often remark how strange the world of quantum mechanics is. That brings us to rule of acquisition 30B. If theory is stranger than fiction, it probably is. The next two rules of acquisition in this series, which we'll discuss in a moment, are going to show you that if there is a theory of everything, it has to be ridiculously simple. And these people are unnecessarily complicating stuff to keep themselves in a job, because if they keep you going, ooh, wow, then the money and the investments and the grant money and the tax money will keep flowing for them to keep coming up with these grand stories of ridiculousness that hasn't done a thing to help your life get better. So in order to keep a scam going, a scam artist have to invent ever more outrageous and convoluted lies and involve ever more people. In ancient Egypt, each successive pyramid was larger than the last, and so too were the promises of fortune bestowed upon those who shouldered the burden of building them, while the promise makers lavished in opulence. And there's where the astrophysicist scam is. They make wild claims about the origins of the universe, and they got a new one out that came out that said, oh, when the universe was created, an equal and opposite universe with negative time had to also be created. That's the new bullshit that's being purported. Okay, and then there's a guy out there by the name of Susskind and another guy with him that are saying, oh, we are a hologram. We are a hologram being projected from the edge of the universe. Really? And they have to come up with ever more insane stories to enchant the average person so that the grant money and the TV royalties will keep rolling in, because obviously you got to keep it going. You got to keep the scam going. You got to come up with even more outrageous things about what the universe is doing. Otherwise, they're not going to create a Discovery Channel show about something you've already been saying for the past 20 years. So you got to keep coming up with something new and fresh to keep that new Discovery Channel that everyone wants to see about the new breakthrough, but it's all bullshit. And why is it bullshit? Because not one thing that they're talking about, whether it be the origin of the universe or that if we're holograms from the edge of that does not affect how you put food on your table. That does not affect how you put money in your bank. It's all gibberish to keep money in their pocket at your expense. It's gibberish. So the complexity trap. Do not become enchanted by complexity or grandeur. Beware of pyramid builders. If a theory seems stranger than fiction, it probably is fiction. And to promulgate a scientific fraud requires ever stranger theoretical constructs. This was used to be called the Ponzi tell. The next two rules of acquisition, 31 and 32. 31 has already been produced. It's already out there. I'm pretty sure 32 is. I got to double check. Rule of acquisition 31 shows the duality between complexity and utility. Rule of acquisition 32 uses all the previous, or many of the previous rules of acquisition to show you, through logic and reason, that if there's a theory of everything, it has to be ridiculously simple. So these grand things about, holographic projectors at the edge of the universe is complete nonsense. Thank you very much.